Welcome to Noir Alley. I'm your host, Eddie Muller. As great as my digs are, this place can get lonely. So today, I am happy to welcome my first visitor to Noir Alley, Chris Mitchum, a filmmaker, writer, actor, and son of screen icon Robert Mitchum, who's the star of today's film, Out of the Past. Chris, welcome.
Thank you, Eddie. Nice to be here.
Thank you for being here. Now, this is the film that was kind of the breakout movie for your dad. This sort of established his screen image that would kind of make him a legend and one of the biggest figures in film noir. Let's talk about the image, the Mitchum image.
Yeah, first of all, I have to say that the movie is incredibly well done. You look at other movies made in the 40s, and this just completely blows them away. It is so professional. The lighting is excellent. The repartee of the dialogue is snappy and quick and very funny.
Now, and your dad was what they call a natural on screen. And he, I want you to talk a little bit about his backstory, because I think you just see it in the film. Yeah. I mean, he carries it all on screen with him. Yeah. This is a guy who didn't spend his youth in acting classes.
No, he used to say, learning to act is like trying to learn to be taller.
And you told me a story about how early he had left home, even earlier than the legend has it.
Yeah, the most biographers say that he left home at the age of 14. He told me he pretty much left home at the age of 12 in 1929 when depression hit. His family couldn't feed him, so he just took one mouth away from the table so it'd be easier for him. And he'd get jobs when he bummed around the country and take $1 and send it home to his mom, and just supported himself. And I think that was one of the backgrounds in acting, because when you're 12 years old and you're on the road with a bunch of men who are hobos in the Depression, one, you got to be tough, or they'll eat you up. And two, he had to learn to assimilate and fit into whatever the environment was, so he wouldn't stand out and get called out. Mm-hmm. And so I think that ability, that sort of natural training in life, gave him the ability to assimilate a role and become the character.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because a lot of times when he was establishing this screen image and becoming a big star, critics weren't always kind to him, because they said, this guy isn't even acting. But now he is this legend. I mean, I dare say that he has become, over time, sort of the noir figure.
Yeah.
Tell me.
Don't you?
Don't what?
I don't want to die.
Neither do I, baby, but if I have to, I'm going to die last.
Well, his life was noir. He had his bumps and downfalls, but he persevered through, and he didn't. Well, I guess he did die at the end, but it wasn't the type, typical film noir death.
But on his terms.
And on his terms, right.
Exactly. I do want to talk about Jane Greer for a second.
Okay.
Because I knew Jane, and she was a delightful person. It's hard to believe in this movie that she is 22 years old.
I can't believe any of them are that young. Douglas was young. My father was 29.
And your dad was 29. Kirk was 26, I think, when they made this film. They're kids. Yeah. They're basically kids. Yeah. And they look like the most savvy, world-weary people in this movie. But I have this little cherished item that I wanted to share.
Oh, that's great.
This is Life magazine from the release of Out of the Past, when Jane was the cover girl on this magazine. She was very proud of that. And they do a whole thing plugging Out of the Past, because this really was, it was a breakthrough film for all of them. Jane really had not done a lot of stuff before this.
Well, they spent a lot of money on that film. That was one of the bigger budget films.
Yes, and RKO made this film. I call it the House of Noir.
Yeah.
And the cinematography that you talked about earlier is by a guy named Nicholas Musaraka, who is one of the best, right, in the business. And there's so many beautiful looks in this film, and every scene has a very distinctive lighting.
The noir continuity, I mean, you look at the dress of Jane, she's kind of light colors at the beginning, and as the film progresses, her wardrobe gets darker and darker and darker.
Exactly. So I think it's time to let people see this movie, Chris.
Okay.
All right. From 1947, directed by Jacques Tourneur, here is Out of the Past.